Look, I'm going to cut through all the noise and misinformation that's floating around out there right now because folks need the truth about what's actually happening with their Social Security checks, their disability payments, and those so-called stimulus checks everyone keeps asking about. And I mean the real truth, not the clickbait garbage you're seeing all over social media, not the fear-mongering headlines designed to get clicks, and definitely not the outright lies being spread by scammers trying to separate you from your money. I get dozens of messages every single day from people who are confused, worried, and in some cases absolutely panicked about what's happening with their benefits. And I understand why. When you're living on a fixed income, when every dollar matters, when you're trying to stretch your Social Security check to cover an entire month of expenses, you need accurate information. You need facts. You need somebody to tell you the truth without trying to sell you something or scare you into clicking on their next video. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to give you the straight facts about your February 2026 payments, explain exactly when your money is coming, help you understand what's really happening with those cost of living adjustments, and most importantly, tell you the truth about these stimulus checks that everyone's talking about, but nobody seems to have actual information on. Here's what's real, and I want you to pay close attention to this because these are the facts that matter for your financial planning. If you were born between the 1st and 10th of any month, your February Social Security payment hits your account on February 11th. That's a Tuesday. Born between the 11th and 20th, that's February 18th, also a Tuesday. And if your birthday falls between the 21st and 31st, you're looking at February 25th, again Tuesday. Now, write those dates down, put them in your calendar, set a reminder on your phone. Do whatever you need to do to remember when your money is coming, because your money needs to last you 4 full weeks until March rolls around. And if you don't plan properly, you're going to run out of money before your next check arrives. And here's something most people don't realize, something that's actually good news for once. Your checks are reflecting that 2.8% cost of living adjustment that kicked in this January. That COLA, cost of living adjustment, was calculated based on inflation numbers from the third quarter of 2025, and it translates to an extra $56 for the average retiree, bringing the typical monthly check to around $2,016 alone. Now, I know what you're thinking. $56 extra, that's not life-changing money, folks. That's not going to revolutionize your budget or suddenly make everything affordable, but it's something. It's a little bit of breathing room. It's maybe an extra prescription copay. It's maybe a few more grocery items in your cart. It's not nothing, even if it's not as much as we'd all like it to be. And here's the thing about that 2.8% increase. When you hear percentage, it sounds better than it actually is because 2.8% of a small number is still a small number. If your monthly Social Security check is $1,500, a 2.8% increase gives you an extra 42 deals a month. If your check is $2,000, you're getting $56 more. If you're one of the fortunate ones getting $3,000 a month, you're seeing $84 more. The math is simple, but the reality is that for most people, this increase barely keeps up with actual inflation. And when you factor in what I'm about to tell you about Medicare premiums, that increase gets even smaller real fast. For those of you on disability, SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, you're on the exact same payment schedule determined by your birth date, not by your disability status. I get this question constantly. Does my disability check come on a different day? No, it doesn't. Your payment date is based on when you were born, period. Same 3 payment windows as everyone else receiving Social Security retirement benefits. Now, let's talk about what everyone keeps calling me about. What's flooding my email inbox, what people are leaving comments about on every single video I post, these phantom stimulus checks. Here's the deal, and I want you to listen carefully because I'm only going to say this once, and then I'm going to explain it in more detail. No new federal stimulus checks are approved for January or February 2026. Zero. Nada. Zilch. None. Not happening. The last real stimulus payments went out back in 2021. Remember those? The American Rescue Plan payments, the $1,400 checks. That was almost 5 years ago. And anything new would require Congress to actually pass legislation and the president to sign it. That hasn't happened. There's been talk, there's been proposals, there's been political speeches, but there has been no actual legislation passed, no bill signed into law, no authorization for the Treasury Department to send out payments. President Trump has talked about sending $2,000 tariff dividend checks to moderate-income Americans. I've seen the proposals floating around Washington. I've read the policy papers. I've watched the press conferences. And yes, the idea exists. The concept is out there. Politicians are discussing it. But talking about it and actually doing it are two completely different things. Talking about something costs nothing. Actually implementing it requires congressional approval, which means getting 218 votes in the House of Representatives, getting 60 votes in the Senate to overcome a filibuster, reconciling any differences between the House and Senate versions of the bill, and then getting the president's signature. That's a long process. That's a complicated process. And importantly, that process hasn't even started yet. There's no bill on the floor. There's no vote scheduled. There's nothing concrete happening beyond politicians talking about the possibility. Congressional approval would be required for direct federal payments. That's not optional. That's how our government works. The executive branch cannot just decide to send money to people without congressional authorization. The power of the purse belongs to Congress, and they have to approve any expenditure of federal funds. And here's another complication that nobody's talking about. Ongoing court challenges could narrow the tariff authority and erode the revenue base that these checks would supposedly come from. Multiple lawsuits are challenging the president's ability to impose tariffs without congressional approval. If those lawsuits succeed, and legal experts think at least some of them might, the tariff revenue that's supposed to fund these payments could disappear or be significantly reduced. The math doesn't even add up on this thing, folks. Let's do some quick calculations. There are roughly 260 million adults in the United States. If you're sending $2,000 to every moderate-income American, let's say that's 150 million people to be conservative. You're talking about $300 billion. That's $300 billion that has to come from somewhere. The administration claims it's going to come from tariff revenue, but current tariff revenue is nowhere near that amount. Even with the new tariffs that have been implemented, we're talking about maybe $100 billion to $150 billion annually in total tariff collections. And that money is already being used for other things. It's not sitting in a pile waiting to be redistributed. So if you're sitting around waiting for a check that might never come, you're making a critical mistake with your financial planning. You're banking on money that doesn't exist yet, that hasn't been authorized, that might never be authorized, and that even if it is authorized, might not materialize because the funding source might not be there. Here's what really concerns me. What keeps me up at night, what makes me absolutely furious when I think about it. Scammers know people are desperate and confused right now. They know people need money. They know people are waiting for help, and they're using that desperation to steal from the most vulnerable Americans. They're sending fake texts that look official with government logos and official-sounding language. They're sending bogus emails that appear to come from the IRS or Social Security Administration. And they're setting up phony websites that look exactly like real government sites, claiming you've got money waiting and you just need to verify your information to claim it. Let me be absolutely crystal clear about something. The IRS does not contact taxpayers through email, text messages, or social media. Period. Full stop. That's not how they operate. That's not how they've ever operated. If the IRS needs to communicate with you, they send you a letter through the U.S. Postal Service. The same is true for the Social Security Administration. They don't email you. They don't text you. They don't call you out of the blue. They send letters, physical letters with stamps through the mail. So if someone's reaching out to you asking for personal information or fees to process your stimulus payment, that's a scam. 100% guaranteed scam. Hang up, delete it, block them. Do not engage. Do not click any links. Do not provide any information. Do not send any money. I've seen people lose thousands of dollars to these scams. I've talked to people who gave scammers their Social Security number, their bank account information, their Medicare number, and then they watched helplessly as the scammers drained their accounts, opened credit cards in their name, filed fraudulent tax returns to steal their refunds. The damage from these scams can take years to undo. Years of fighting with banks, with credit bureaus, with the IRS, trying to prove that you're the victim of identity theft and that those charges weren't you. Don't become a statistic. Don't become another victim. If someone contacts you about a stimulus payment, assume it's a scam unless you have absolute proof otherwise. And even then, verify independently by calling official government phone numbers that you look up yourself, not numbers provided in the suspicious message. The bottom line is this. Plan your February around the Social Security and SSDI payments you know are coming. Those are real. Those dates are set, and that money is yours. Don't budget based on rumors or political promises that haven't materialized into actual legislation. That's not being negative. That's being smart with your money. Because at the end of the day, hope is not a financial strategy. And neither is waiting around for a check that Washington hasn't even authorized yet. Now, let's dive deeper into what these changes really mean for your wallet, because understanding the numbers is one thing, but understanding how to actually manage your money based on these numbers is something entirely different. And I want to spend some time on something that's going to frustrate a lot of you, but you need to hear it anyway. That Medicare Part B premium I mentioned earlier. Let me explain exactly why this matters so much more than most people realize. When they tell you that you're getting a 2.8% cost of living adjustment, that sounds pretty good on paper, doesn't it? You hear raise and you think your financial situation just improved. You think you're going to have more money to spend. You start planning in your head about what you're going to do with that extra money. But here's the reality check that nobody wants to talk about. The cold, hard truth that government officials conveniently leave out when they announce these cost of living adjustments. That Medicare Part B premium just jumped to $185.90 a month. That's up from $185 last year. Actually, let me correct that. I misspoke. The 2026 Medicare Part B premium is $290 a month. That's up from $185 in 2025. Do the math with me here. That's an increase of $17.90 every single month being pulled directly from your Social Security check before you even see it. So when you got excited about that $56 monthly increase from the cost of living adjustment, you need to subtract that Medicare increase right off the top. You're really only seeing about $38 more in your actual bank account. That's not even 2/3 of what the government told you that you were getting. Let that sink in for a minute. The government announces a 2.8% cost of living adjustment. They hold press conferences. They issue press releases. They make it sound like they're really helping seniors. But then Medicare premiums go up by $17.90, eating up nearly a third of that increase before you even have a chance to spend it. And I'm going to be straight with you about something else. That Medicare Part B deductible, it went up too. It's now $283 for the year, up from $257 in 2025. That's an extra $26 you have to pay out of pocket before Medicare even starts covering your medical expenses for the year. Every time you turn around, there's another cost increase eating away at your benefits. Medicare premiums up, Medicare deductibles up, prescription drug costs up, grocery prices up, utility costs up, housing costs up. Everything is going up faster than your Social Security check. This is why I get so fired up when people don't plan properly. You cannot just assume that a cost of living adjustment means you have more money to spend. You have to account for all the things that are going to eat into that adjustment. And Medicare is the biggest culprit for most retirees. Think about it this way. If you're getting $2,000 a month in Social Security and you got a 2.8% increase, that's $56 more. But if your Medicare premium went up $17.90, you're really only getting $38.10 more in your bank account. That's a 1.9% real increase, not 2.8%. Almost a full percentage point disappeared to Medicare. And that doesn't even account for the other things going up. If your supplemental insurance premium went up, and most of them did, that's more money gone. If your prescription drug plan premium went up, and many of them did, that's more money gone. If your property taxes went up, if your homeowner's insurance went up, if your utilities went up, all of that is eating into that cost of living adjustment. Here's something else that's critically important, especially if you're one of those folks who decided to keep working while collecting Social Security. Good for you, by the way. Seriously, I mean that. Working gives you purpose, keeps you active and engaged, keeps your mind sharp, and brings in additional income that can really help stretch your budget. But there are rules you need to understand, and breaking these rules isn't like getting a speeding ticket where you pay a fine and move on. The government will take money right out of your Social Security payments, and they're not going to ask permission first. They're not going to send you a warning. They're just going to reduce your check, and then you'll get a letter explaining why after the fact. If you're under your full retirement age for the entire year of 2026, listen carefully to this number. $24,280. That's your earnings limit for the year. Write it down, memorize it, tattoo it on your arm if you have to. Every single dollar you earn above that threshold costs you. The Social Security Administration will reduce your benefits by $1 for every $2 you earn over that limit. Let me say that again slower because it's important and because people miss this all the time. For every $2 over the limit, you lose $1 in benefits. So if you earn $30,000 in 2026 and you're under full retirement age, you're $5,520 over the limit. Half of that, $2,260, will be withheld from your Social Security benefits. That's $230 a month that you're not getting because you earned too much. Now, if you're reaching your full retirement age sometime in 2026, you get a slightly better deal, but the government still has their hand in your pocket. Your earnings limit for the months before you hit full retirement age is $65,260. Once you exceed that amount, they take $1 in benefits for every $3 you earn over the limit. The difference is that this reduction only applies to the months before you reach full retirement age. So if you hit full retirement age in June 2026, the earnings limit only applies to January through May. Once you hit that birthday in June, the earnings limit disappears completely for the rest of the year. Once you hit that magic birthday, you can earn as much as you want without any penalty whatsoever. The earnings cap completely disappears. You could make $1 million, and the Social Security Administration won't touch your benefits. You could win the lottery. You could start a business that takes off. You could get a high-paying consulting job. Doesn't matter. Once you're at full retirement age, your earnings don't affect your Social Security at all. But until you reach that full retirement age, they're watching every penny you earn. And trust me, they will find out. Your employer reports your wages to Social Security. Your tax return reports your self-employment income to Social Security. They know what you're making, and if you go over the limit, they will reduce your benefits. And let me clarify something because I get this question all the time, at least a dozen times a week. When the government talks about earnings for this limit, they're talking about wages from your job or net profit if you're self-employed. They're including your bonuses, your commissions, your vacation pay, your sick pay if your employer continues to pay you. They're counting everything that comes from you actually working. But here's what they don't count, and this is important. This is the good news in all of this. They don't count your pension. They don't count annuities. They don't count investment income like stock dividends or capital gains. They don't count interest from your savings account or CDs. They don't count veterans' benefits, and they don't count other government or military retirement benefits. So if you've got rental income coming in from a property you own, that doesn't count against the earnings limit. If you're pulling money out of your 401k or IRA, that doesn't count. If you're getting dividends from your stock portfolio, that doesn't count. The earnings test only applies to actual work earnings, W-2 wages and self-employment income. That's it. That's a crucial distinction that a lot of people miss, and it opens up opportunities for people who want additional income but don't want to lose Social Security benefits. You can't work more without penalty if you're under full retirement age, but you can structure your finances to generate income from non-work sources without any penalty at all. Let me talk about supplemental security income for a minute because this program operates on a completely different payment schedule from Social Security retirement and disability. And if you're receiving SSI, you need to pay attention to the quirks in the calendar because they affect when you actually get your money. SSI payments normally hit your account on the first of every month. First of the month, every month, like clockwork. except when the first falls on a weekend or federal holiday, and then things get moved around. But here's where it gets interesting for February 2026. February 1st falls on a Sunday. The Social Security Administration doesn't make payments on weekends or federal holidays, which means your February SSI payment is actually going to arrive on January 30th. That's a Friday. I want you to write that date down right now. Get a pen, get a piece of paper, January 30th. If you're on SSI, that's when you're getting your February money. Put it in your calendar, set a reminder. Make sure you know when that money is coming. And here's the part that confuses people every single year. And I mean every single year I get messages from people who don't understand this. You're not getting a bonus. You're not getting an extra check. You're not getting double money. You're getting your February payment early because of how the calendar falls. That means you will not receive another SSI payment during the actual month of February. You need to budget accordingly because that money that hits your account on January 30th has to stretch all the way through February and into the beginning of March when your next payment arrives. Let me paint you a picture of how this can go wrong. Your SSI payment arrives on January 30th. You see money in your account. You've still got a couple days left in January. You think, great, I've got extra money this month. I can pay some bills early. I can buy some groceries. Maybe I can afford that thing I've been wanting. So you spend some of that money in January. Maybe you spend half of it. Maybe you spend all of it if you've got bills piling up. And then February arrives, and you realize you've got 28 days to get through on whatever's left of that payment. And you've got rent due, utilities due, food to buy, medications to pay for, and you've already spent a chunk of that money thinking you had extra. This is where people get into trouble with their money management. They see that payment show up at the end of January, and they think, great, I've got extra money this month. No, you don't. That's your February money showing up early. If you spend it all in January, you're going to be broke all through February. I've seen this happen to people year after year, and it breaks my heart because it's completely avoidable. You just have to understand the calendar and plan ahead. When you get that January 30th payment, treat it like it's February 1st money. Don't spend it in January just because it showed up a couple days early. Save it. Hold on to it. Let it sit in your account until February actually starts. SSI recipients got a 2.8% increase just like everyone else, which means a little more money each month, but not enough to go crazy with. The average SSI payment for 2026 is $967 for an individual. That's up from $941 in 2025. So we're talking about an extra $26 a month. And I want you to notice something. The average SSI payment is significantly lower than the average Social Security retirement benefit. Social Security retirement averages around $2,016 a month. SSI averages $967 a month. That's less than half, so every dollar counts even more for SSI recipients. These folks are living on extremely tight budgets, and a mistake in planning can mean not eating for a few days or not being able to afford medication. Now, let's get back to this stimulus check situation, because I want to make absolutely certain that everyone understands what's happening here, what's real, and what's fantasy. There is a lot of conversation in political circles about sending out payments to American households. President Trump has talked about these so-called tariff dividend checks that could be worth $2,000. The theory goes something like this. The government collects tariffs on imported goods. Those tariffs bring in revenue, and then that revenue gets redistributed to American citizens as a form of dividend, kind of like shareholders getting dividends from a profitable company. It sounds great when you hear it explained that way, doesn't it? Free money from tariffs on foreign goods. What's not to love? But here's what you need to understand about how government actually works, how legislation actually becomes law, how money actually gets appropriated and spent. Talking about something and doing something are light years apart. They're not even in the same universe. Politicians talk about a lot of things. They propose ideas. They float trial balloons. They make speeches. They hold press conferences. And 90% of what they talk about never actually happens. It dies in committee. It fails to get enough votes. It gets amended beyond recognition. Or it just fades away when people stop paying attention. For the federal government to send direct payments to citizens, Congress has to pass legislation. That legislation has to make it through the House of Representatives. It has to make it through the Senate. Both chambers have to agree on the exact same bill with the exact same language. Then it goes to the president's desk for signature. Only after all of that happens does the Treasury Department actually have the authority to send out payments. They can't just decide to send money to people because the president talked about it in a speech. They need actual legal authorization, an actual law that says send X amount to Y people using Z criteria.